Hey guys, it's Alexandra. Today I'm going to be talking with David, who recently went through a really drastic weight loss transformation. He lost half his body weight, about 200 pounds, and he's going to be talking about the book that he wrote based off of his experience called Drop the Baggage. And he also started a company that helps other people with the same goal kind of transform their perspective and their lifestyle and their mindset, and also, of course, their physical health. So I hope that you will hear his story and sort of resonate with some of the motivation and inspiration that he offers. He, is a very strong person, both physically and mentally. So I think there's a lot to take away from this. I hope that you will stay tuned to hear more about his life and subscribe for more videos. All right, thank you.
Watch me turn into a savage in 4 years.
For 48 hours. Now what does it turn into? It turns into how hard we compete. How personal do you take this? How personal do you take your matchup? How personal do you take it if they don't slide to you? How personal do you take it if somebody beats you with ground ball? How personal do you take it if somebody knocks the ball out of your stick guy when you pick the ground ball up? Fellas, there's a lot to be said about character. What happens when you make a mistake? Do you sit back and you feel sorry for yourself? Or do you ball your fists up and get in a fist fight? Fellas, we made a mistake 10 days ago. And now it's about character. All that matters today is our response. Ball your fists up, take it personally, and get ready to
Like, that's literally what it came down to. Is I was never told no. With my dad working 70, 80, 90 hours a week, he was working from 6 a.m. to 7, 8 p.m. every single night. So that was the way things were. And then I have a special needs brother. At the time was a lot of work, a lot of anger issues. And so my mom had a lot of focus there. And so when you're 13 to 18 years old and you have a credit card, your mom's credit card, and never get told no, what do kids want? Food and video games. And so basically from that point, I was eating a Costco sized bag of because I lived in like a 7,000 square foot house, always had friends over. So my mom always kept the pantry just stocked with food. So you never really knew who was eating the food. Obviously, I was eating the food. But like, the Reese's are gone again. And you would just assume that it was all the friends and all this kind of stuff. But I was eating like a Costco-sized bag of Reese's almost every single day. I was drinking 15 to 20 Diet Cokes a day, playing video games for 6 hours till 3 in the morning, waking up at 6:37 to go to school. So I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. And kind of when you do that, that's the outcome is obesity. Like, there's just not very many things around it. And it's kind of crazy because when I was in my late teens, in like 18, 16, 17, 18 years old, my dad, being the doctor, is like, all right, my son's 400 pounds. He's pre-diabetic. He's got high blood pressure. What is medically causing this? And I went to every doctor under the sun. I got a couple of brain scans done, seeing like, what is it? What's crazy is I did have a cyst on my pituitary gland. And I remember having this doctor tell me at like 16 years old, hey, this could be the cyst and you may not be able to control this. And this just may be the cards you're dealt. Now, I understand it's important to say, but you tell a 16-year-old kid it's not his fault. That's right. I just use it as a crutch. Like, oh, it's not my fault. I can't control this. It is what it is. And I kind of lived that just unaccountable because he had no idea I was eating the kind of food I was. No one knew. I mean, you would have ideas. You'd think I was, but I'd pocket eat. I would eat $20 in Taco Bell in my car, and then no one would notice. And I would do all the classic moves to kind of just eat because I just felt like eating. And then when I was 17, 18 years old, I hit the dark point of everything. With my dad being a doctor, my uncle's a lawyer. Success was like, that's kind of, you had to be a doctor. Like, that's what it was. My grades were plummeting, everything like that. And when I was 18, I my grades dropped to below a 1 point at one point. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to college. I'm a pre-diabetic. My body's shot. I'm in pain. I'm frustrated. And no one knew. I talk about it in my book. I almost ended my life twice, senior year of high school. And I remember fast forwarding to that, when I wrote my book, my dad got to hear that story for the first time, and he broke. And he's like, I failed you as a father. It was a really, really intense moment. Obviously, I mean, like, Dad, how are you supposed to know this? Like, you're working 90 hours a week. Like, it's not your fault. And so thank God I didn't go through with anything. It was more thoughts than anything. I never actually tried to end my life, but it was deep thoughts of it because I just felt so trapped. Got into college and then still lived the 400-pound life until I was a junior. And my junior year was when everything changed. So I was in this transition period. I had my EMT license at this point. I decided med school wasn't for me. And so I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? And I was just open up to new opportunities, new people. And I started hanging around new people that were huge into personal growth, like Tony Robbins, just big into personal growth and self-development. And they had extremely high standards in their group. It was, you worked out every day. You ate to fuel your body. You didn't eat for taste and convenience. And it was something that I just really enjoyed and I needed. They had that really high sense of accountability. And at this time, my first book I read was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And that book was the catalyst that simplified the change. Because up until this point, I mean, when you look at yourself at 400 plus pounds, you're like, losing 200 pounds always seems so outlandishly impossible that you never try. That's what it comes down to. Let me try P90X. Let me try this program. Let me try that. But you don't really commit because you know it's not going to work. You don't believe it's possible. So it's the classic gain 20, lose 20, lose 20, gain 20, back and forth, because you do it for a week, you lose some weight, and then you gain it all back. It's like, oh, see, it doesn't work. And then that book just simplified things for me, because like the most profound thing about it was, how do you lose 200 pounds? Well, if you lose 2 pounds a week for 100 weeks, you lose 200 pounds. I'm like, okay, that sounds feasible. And so I hyper focused on 2 pounds a week for the first 50 pounds. So like I was at my heaviest, I was 410. And so I'm still in college this time. I was like, all right, next week I'm gonna be 408. And I hit it. I'm like, sweet. All right, 406. Boom, hit it. 404, 402, 400. And when I hit the point of being about 50 pounds down, it was actually right at the point where I hit 50 pounds down. When I stepped on the scale after being 50 pounds down, I broke. I just like busted into tears. I remember staring myself in the mirror, and this is still in college. And I'm like, I'm changing everything I don't like about myself. And I dove into neuro-linguistic programming, got fascinated with nutrition and how the body works, intermittent fasting, extended fasting, keto, calories, macros. I just dove into it. And then about a year and a half later, I lost 200 pounds, had 2 excess skin removal surgeries about 3 years ago, got into bodybuilding since, and then competed my first bodybuilding show last year, published my first book last year. And that's like the thumbnail sketch.
So when did you decide that you were going to write a book?
Yeah, so it's funny. It's the classic. Obviously, after I lost the 180, 200 pounds, everyone's like, hey, write the book. And I'm like, I'm not ready yet. I still feel like I got to go farther. And it wasn't until actually my pastor kind of talked to me about how he had written multiple books. And he's like, David, let me just get real with you. You're going to write more than one book. You're like, this is what's going to happen. You're going to write your first book. You think it's your best masterpiece, and then you're going to do it. And then you're going to be like, yo, you're going to write another one. And then you're going to write another one. And so he looks at me, he's like, just write one. And that was like the kind of the catalyst for me. And so 2 years ago, because I published last year. So 2 years ago, I started writing the book. And then it only took me about 9 months to write the book from beginning to end and publish. And And so, yeah, it was basically just like that foundation from the mental and physical aspects to change, and then like the fundamentals to nutrition.
And do you think, I know you mentioned you were talking to your pastor about, and that's kind of like where you decided to like go for it. Does your faith play into faith play into your transformation at all?
It's actually an interesting one. I would say indirectly. I wouldn't say it was a massive catalyst for the change. I will say to this day, I understand treat your body as a temple, and that's why I do so now. My faith is stronger now than it was in college, as it is for a lot of people that way. I got the same time period where the same group of friends that got me into personal growth and accountability are the same friends that have a very strong faith as well. And so at this time I got into going to mission trips and everything like that. And so did it play a role? Yeah. I think of today, I look at more as I'm grateful that God put me in that position, because now I have the ability to connect with people on a different level that no one else really can. Was it like I'm doing this for God at the time? No. I needed it for my own life, from my standpoint. But like looking at it now, I'm grateful that God put me in that position, because now I can do that. So yes.
Awesome. And you are lucky enough to be able to, do public speaking and stuff like that. And you also started a company. Can you tell me
Yes.
about that?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I have been a it's so generic, entrepreneur for a few years now. But usually I've always been the right-hand man. And this past year I was like, you know what? I want to build something for myself, something I'm truly passionate about and really want to contribute to. And so at the same timeline of publishing my book, I started a small podcast because like the book is called Drop the Baggage. And I started a podcast, or I was about to launch a podcast called Drop the Baggage Podcast. And at this time, I ended up one of my guests on there, because the whole premise was going to be like to speak to average everyday people who have lost and sustained over 100 pounds. Like that was like, because one of the things that I have found fascinating about weight loss, especially, is there are some foundational like things you can't overdo. Like you can't, like obviously if you're trying to become financially literate, you have to save. Like there's no way around it. If you don't save, if you don't save money, you can't get financially free. But like same thing with food. You could always out eat the calories you burn. And so I got fascinated with how people from different walks of life, from different areas, lost and sustained over 100 pounds in completely different ways. Keto, vegan, vegetarian, paleo, calorie counting, the bro vegetables and chicken. Like people did it in such different ways. And so I get fascinated by that, because I'm so sick of the diet culture of this is the way you have to do things. And it's like, well, then explain to me the person that did this. Like, that's not true. So I got fascinated by that. And so at that time, John, who's my partner now, Arpino, he did it through gastric bypass. That was a part of, the guy was 580, 600 pounds. And with all of his medical conditions, I find it funny that gastric bypass and surgery has a negative connotation, but people just don't get it. Like it's not just a pill. Everyone thinks it's just some secret pill. It's just not. And so him and I just vibed heavy on how we saw weight loss, how we saw accountability, how we saw where people needed help. And so him and I were like, all right, we're in the same position. We want to do the same thing. Why, quote unquote, compete when we partner up? And so we're like, all right, let's do this. He actually came up with the name Accountable Life Group, ALG for short, because obviously for us, like personal accountability is the foundation. Like if you think that you're at effect to the world, if you think you have no control and all this kind of stuff, nothing's gonna ever change. You have to first come to the realization that you are in control of your life. You can change your habits. You can change the things, because if you change things, results will change. And so him and I just came together on that. And the first 6 months was just kind of like value. We started with a podcast and a community, and it's grown incredibly. We're just past a year, and it's so cool. Like, we have inside of basically we have our own Facebook is like the easiest way to explain it, like our community. And we have 30 people who have lost over 150 pounds in it. We got like 6 who have lost over 200. We got 2 or 3 who have lost over 300 pounds. And it's so cool because we have people from all walks of life who did it in different ways, who struggle with the same things and different things. And so it's a nice base of community where people just want to help people. That's what it's about. And so building that community out has been phenomenal. Creating educational tools. We just came out with a journal. So like a monthly kind of journal to help people set those daily accountabilities. So like I always break down life into 6 areas. So you have physical life, mental life, spiritual life, relationship life, community life, and money life. And what happens is most people, they focus on their relationship life, and then all of a sudden their money starts to drop, and they focus on their health and they lose their friendships or whatever it is. And so this just helps you create balance in all 6 areas. And so that's what ALG is really about. Because yeah, weight loss is a piece of the puzzle, but it's not life. And this is what a lot of even weight loss people get caught up in, is they lose 150, 200 pounds. And they're like, what do I do next? And they made their identity in weight loss, and it's so dangerous. Because now it's like, okay, now after you lost your weight, well, what's next? And they get so freaked out because they made their identity behind it, and it can be dangerous. So that was a long answer to what the company is, but hopefully that answered it.
That's awesome. I'm sure it's super rewarding to see that you're actually having an impact on people.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes I think it's hard to tell, and the fact that they're physically changing as well as emotionally and mentally, and all of that stuff, like you mentioned, balance. I think that's really important. And I was wondering, as far as your journey goes, how did you maintain mental and emotional and all those other types of health while you were losing weight?
Yeah. So I think that's why it was so sustainable to me at the beginning. Was I dove into personal development and like reflecting on my actions and my thoughts early. And so it wasn't, for example, a lot of people like white knuckle weight loss. They just like, this is what I'm going to do. And they just put their head down. That's all they think about. And it's fine. But then there's eventually a point where you look up and your relationships kind of crumbled and all this kind of stuff kind of fell apart because you hyper focus on one thing, which is cool, but you lose so many other avenues. And so for me, I, from the get-go, was really big into looking at life as a whole as I was looking at this. I will admit the first 80 to 100 pounds was very much an obsession, because when I was in my final year at college, when I hit the last like 50 to 150 pounds, and I was taking 18 credits of biomed degree classes. So it was mammalian physiology, comparative vertebrate anatomy, it was organic chemistry, it was a gauntlet. And so between all of that, while losing 100 plus pounds in that year, and then at the same time, I'm keeping my grades together, still having some time for friendship. I think with writing things down the way I did, journaling out, even this early on, I was looking at life into 6 areas. And so like I journaled out, I'm like, all right, Friday night is friend night. I'm going to do something with friends and like that. And I was really able to early on categorize things out a little bit, where I think it kept me grounded, because I think that was for me, that diving into that early kind of kept me grounded, where most people can kind of obsess over it a little bit.
Right.
If that makes sense. I kind of navigated there a little bit. No, I mean, I'm trying to think about it in a little deeper tone. I mean, my senior year, that final semester was, I mean, I was up at I was in momentum though. I think that's important too, where you build momentum with this stuff. It's like at the beginning, 2 pounds a week was all I could fathom. That was my, the way I kind of explain it and the way I've heard it is you have like your sweet spot goal. You have a dream goal, which is lose 200 pounds. But for most people, you set this dream goal, you don't believe it. And so the sweet spot goal is a goal that's large enough that excites you, but small enough that you truly believe you can hit. That's in that way. And so obviously at the beginning, it was 2 pounds a week at the beginning. But after that first year and I'd lost that 51st pounds, I was in momentum. I mean, I was in that I'm changing everything stage. So I was up at 5:30 a.m. every morning with my morning workouts. I was going through a different workout buddy every week because at this point I'm down 70, 80, 90, 100 pounds. And so every friend under the sun, oh, David, you're doing so well. Can I work out with you in the morning? I'm there at 5:30 if you want to come. And sure enough, I'd get one for 3 days, and then he would quit, and then one for 4 days, and then he would quit. And I'm like, hey, you do you. I'm just doing me here. So I guess that happens too, where it's like sometimes I think there is that semblance of I knew at the time I couldn't pull everyone along with me. I'm like, this is me right now. Like at least when it came to my health, I was just like, I'm doing me. So like I guess that's actually kind of true too. And it depends on your definition of what you want to call healthy. And I remember like that first, after that first 50 pounds, because I was at college and I was kind of in my own little world. But when I was getting to like that 100-pound mark, 150, 200, and I was transitioning to living back at home and you had family get-togethers and stuff, I didn't eat family food. I had my own food. And so you would get some family events where it's like, David, you lost 160 pounds. You can take a break. You're going too hard. And I'm like, see, I do take celebration meals. I do these things, but this isn't on my plan. This is my plan and I'm sticking to it. So I think there is that semblance of, I dealt with that sometimes where friends or family would say, you're going too hard. You need to calm down. And I'm like, I want to hit my goal first and then we'll go from there. I think I went on a little bit of a tangent off of that. Did that make sense? Does that answer the question?
For sure.
Okay.
I think, also, like one interesting thing that I've noticed, I've heard some people speak out online, at least, about how even though you lose, especially people that have lost a significant amount of weight, like 100+ pounds, feel like insecure sort of after that because
100%.
they're not, you would think from the outside point of view, how could you be insecure if you just lost a bunch of weight? Like, wouldn't you be really confident? But I hear people talking about how they don't feel like they're like the same person that they were before. Did you experience any of that?
That one's it's fascinating because it's big in ALG. And this is the whole idea of mental versus physical change. And obviously there's always some mental change because if you don't change mentally at some level, you're not going to change your habits to change physically. But there's plenty of people within ALG, for example, that have lost 100, 150, 200 pounds. They're still building that confidence of you're not who you used to be. And like, for example, I like the way I was explaining is like you have two doors, you have your old life and your new life. And you haven't closed the door on your past and you're kind of half in the door. Occasionally you look back to the old door of who you used to be. And it's this little balance. I think everyone goes through it. It's interesting. Different people close the door at different places. Cause for me, the door closed in my excess skin removal surgeries. That's like, it truly was like, I joke, I'm like 400-pound David is gone. Like he doesn't exist. I'm fascinated by him. Like, wow, it's crazy what you used to do, but it's not like that's not who I am. Like it's not even a question anymore. Now, some people, they can lose 150, 200 pounds and they look back and they're like, I'm still right there. And I think that closing of the door of the past happens for different people for different reasons. Sometimes it's a relational thing. Sometimes it's obviously you just need to make a decision that it's like, that's just not who I am anymore. Like that's gone. And I've personally got that switch through my excess skin removal surgeries, because it just like, it sucks. Like the excess skin, like there's just no way for me. I mean, I respect like Obese to Beast and some of these guys that can have all this excess skin and they are like, hey, they're cool in their body. That's cool. I respect it. Like that's why, again, I'm not going to tell everyone to get excess skin removal surgery, because if you're done and you feel great, you don't have to. Like, that's fine. Like, I'm not going to tell you have to. For me, the excess skin removal surgeries was a chapter turner for me. And so that really changed, like took me away from the past. And it's interesting too, because even it's fascinating, like relationally, like with relationships. It's like, so when I was 400 plus pounds, the funny fat guy, and I was the supporter role. I was the protector. And so like in college, it was always funny because all the athlete girls, cheerleaders, they always liked hanging around me at the bars, because if any dude was being reckless, I dealt with it. And I'm like, mm-mm. And obviously you're 6'1", 400 pounds. There's not a lot of people that would be like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm out. And so it was a cool feeling where I was that little protector. Well, because the main reason why was I didn't think I had a chance with these girls, so I didn't even try. So like it wasn't even an option. And so it was easy. And then, but what's funny was you lose 150 to 200 pounds. This is pre-skin removal surgeries. And I'm now like, do they like me? Do they find me attractive? And now I went to this phase where I was like scared to even talk to girls I would normally just talk to for fun, because I'm now like in this phase of, I don't want to be rejected. And it was a super goofy phase of like, and then after the skin removal surgeries, and then I started just like going on dates and kind of stuff with girls I found attractive. And then it kind of just built up momentum from that point. But yeah, it is fascinating to me how some people flip the switch early on their past, and some people hold on to it for years and years to come to let go. It is fascinating.
How, just out of curiosity,
yeah,
what is the process of a skin removal surgery?
Yeah, so for me, definitely grateful my dad's a doctor, because number one, it's expensive. Most of the time insurance isn't covering it. Like, unless you have a bunch of like skin rashes and stuff you can prove to the insurance companies, they ain't paying for it. It's all plastic surgery, which is stupid, because I feel like there's got to be good numbers that show after skin removal surgery, the relapse rate on obesity has got to be less. It has to be. Like, I just don't know why it wouldn't be. But so how it kind of worked for me was about 3.5 years ago. I was down 170-ish, and I went in for my consultation, and I went to a plastic surgeon who my dad knew. And how it worked was I had two different surgeries. I had a waist, hips, and butt. So like all the skin flapper on my belly, my hips, my waist. Basically, I have a scar completely around my waist, where they basically just like cut it, slide it up, and all that kind of stuff. That was a brutal surgery. That was like, I was on the knife for like 7 hours. That was a lot. And completely worth it, obviously. But it was like 2.5 months of just, it sucked. Like I had these little drains and all this kind of stuff on me. And I had a unfortunate event about 2 months post-op that I thought I was doing great. Everything's fantastic. I was in Orlando, and I went on Tower of Terror and ripped my incision open. It's so dumb. I call my surgeon up, and I'm like, yeah, I tore my incision. He's like, what do you mean you tore your incision? I'm like, I was on a roller coaster. He's like, you idiot. Yeah. So I had that happen to me. And then so I had the waist, hips, and butt done. And then about 5 months later, I had chest done. And they didn't want to do them at the same time, because you want to let your skin settle before, because if you did it at the same time, it may change the angles and all that kind of stuff. And that's all I've had. I mean, I do have a little bit of bat wing, but not crazy. I mean, I've worked on getting big arms and stuff to kind of fix it. But I don't plan on getting any more surgeries after this. I mean, some people need the big wings and all this kind of stuff done. I have some, but again, I'm very content with where I'm at. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's good to know because, yeah, there's plenty of people that I've seen online too that, you know, share their weight loss journeys, and they do have that extra skin. And I assumed if it was easy and cheap, a lot more people would be getting it.
Oh, it's not. So I mean, we're talking when it was all said and done between the two surgeries, like 23 grand, maybe 24 grand.
Yeah.
So the waist, hips, and butt was like 16 to 18, and the chest was like 5, something like that. And so, I mean, I wish insurance company, I'm surprised because I think about this being in the medical industry. Like, I'm surprised the data hasn't come out that shows like the relapse rates being a lot less after skin removal surgery, but who knows?
And I'm interested also, just seeing that you physically, you know, made those changes and went through that journey and, you know, completely transformed. I think one thing that I've noticed in our culture, in like our society and our social media culture and stuff, are a lot of debates about body positivity and body.
Yep.
I think that's kind of a tricky one because there's a lot of people who are obese and who are showing their bodies and not being ashamed of themselves and, you know, promoting body positivity and self-love and whatnot. And there's a lot of backlash relating to that, saying, you know, you could just change. What do you think about that whole argument?
So I love the Will Smith quote. If you truly love yourself, you would do things for yourself that are loving. And that's treating your body and your mind with the respect it deserves. And obesity is not treating your body with the respect it deserves. And I get it. Like, a great story to kind of go about this is people want to feel better about themselves. And again, they want to feel better about themselves in the moment because that's the way they're thinking. When I was 18 and I stepped on the scale for the first time over 400 pounds, I was 410, and I went to the doctor, and I was pre-diabetic, all that kind of stuff. And I was at my endocrinologist, and which is like for diabetes. And I was like, oh, 410 pounds. Okay. This is wild. The funny part too was, so like these scales, they had like the little handlebars. Now I'm pretty sure the handlebar is connected to the base anyways, but I used to grab it like this subtly without anyone looking at me and like kind of lift to see if I could take off 5 or 10 pounds. And you just think about this, how ridiculous this is. I'm 400 plus pounds. What does it matter if I try to pull off 5 pounds? But again, this is the thought process that's going through someone's head at this size, is they're trying to justify any way they can to make themselves feel better in the moment. And I get it. So after that moment, I go to school and I go to all my friends and I'm like, hey guys, how much do you think I weigh? And they're like, 300, 310. And I'm like, okay. And a bunch of people saying 290, 310, 310, all this kind of stuff. And I go home to my mom and I was like, hey mom, I look pretty good for 400 pounds because all my friends think I'm 300. I must be pretty evenly distributed. Now you think about that. And you're like trying to justify any way you can to bring about the semblance of making yourself feel better, no matter how outlandish this is. I'm destroying my body. Let's be real. I'm being pre-diabetic and have high blood pressure at 18 years old. I'm destroying my body. And yet I'm trying to find anything I can attach to make myself feel better in the moment. So I get it. Like, I get it. But this is not reality. And that's the hard part, is like, body positivity to me is things again, there's twofold to me in body positivity. Number one, if you're born without a left leg, you got to own it. Like, there's just no way around it. So you own it. Like, yeah, I don't have a left leg. Guess what? I'm cool. I'm different. Like, you're born with a skin in lesions or something, and that's who you are. Own it. Like, body positivity, own who you are. Fat and obesity in its extremes. Like, when you're you can be plenty healthy, 10, 20, 30 pounds, even 40 pounds overweight. That's fine. You can eat your cheesecake. But when you're 50, 60, 80, 100, 200 pounds overweight, there's just no way around it. You're not healthy. It's just not. And it's just not treating your body with the respect it deserves. And so it's just not a positive thing to think. There's a lot of things you can be positive about. You can be positive about that you have two legs that are able to move to get yourself to do things, but to own fat on your body, it just you're not treating your body with the respect it deserves by having all this excess fat. And I do agree with doing a bodybuilding show. I got down to 10% body fat. I saw backstage of what these bikini girl competitors were doing, all these guys were doing, and they're doing some nasty stuff to their bodies to do some of this. And that's not healthy either. And I'll be the first one to say it, but that's the point, is health and happiness have a fantastic balance to it. Obesity is not a part of it. It's just not. And the same thing on the opposite side, anorexia and bulimia and all this stuff is not healthy either. I think we do need to get natural sizes into things more, and that's a great conversation to have. But natural sizes and obesity are not the same thing.
Right. And what do you think about from what you've said, you don't seem like you seem like you made the decision on your own.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think people who are being almost shamed into it, there is
For sure,
population of people who they might not feel like they're ready, or they might not, you think they can do it. Like you said, it's very intimidating. If you know you have to lose 100 plus pounds, a lot of people will be like, not gonna try it. I'm not gonna succeed, so I'm not gonna try. How would you advise people who are facing criticism and using that as a way to think that they need to lose weight, whether they do or not?
Mm-hmm.
How do you navigate that? How do you do it in a healthy way mentally?
Oh, for sure. So a couple things with that. Number one, there's external and internal motivation, and they're both effective. Now, external motivation is fleeting, meaning you may be able to do things for a while because your parents told you to. You may be able to do things for a while because you want to feel good from the people around you. But it always fleets. It's going to disappear eventually because number one, you're allowing something that you have no control over to control your life. And you never know. The classic misconception is like allowing, like, if you are doing something because you're trying to get a reaction out of someone else, you're allowing your emotions and who you are as an individual to be controlled by someone else, which is extremely dangerous. Like, for example, if you are a giver, but you only give because you want someone to say thank you, well, guess what? You're now allowing them to have power over your decisions, which is very dangerous. Same thing in this situation. External motivation when it comes to even ALG, I talk about this extensively. If you're doing this because you're trying to impress me, if you're doing this because you want to do it for us, it's not going to work long term. If you're not doing it for yourself, if you don't build internal motivation, how it's going to benefit you, if you're not figuring out strategies and understanding why it's going to benefit your life as an individual, fitting into clothes better, going to be able to do things, having less painful knees, if you're not doing it for the semblance of your own internal guidance system, it won't last. And so but it doesn't deny that external can help you get moving, but it's never going to be the reason. It's like a trainer, for example. Trainers are great for momentum. Trainers are great. Coaches are great for all these types of things, but this is all external motivation. And guess what? There's going to be a point in time where you don't have a trainer anymore. Guess what? There's going to be a time where if you do this for your mom's going to die eventually. So you're allowing things that you have no control over to dignify your motivation, to dignify the reasons why you do things. And it's just extremely dangerous. And so I always say, okay, you may be using external motivation at first, which is fine. Figure out passions and internal reasons why it's important for you as an individual. Whether it's a relationship with God and you're using it biblically of treating your body as a temple and like, this is what God would want me to do. That's a very powerful internal motivator. But when it comes to that, and then I think when someone's in that position, you would be blown away. I'm a huge proponent of listening to people who have what you want and have been where you're at. Okay. It's a foundational principle that I've always lived by. So like when you take advice, when you're getting influenced by something or someone, make sure that individual, number one, has results you're looking for. For example, it's hysterical to me when I'm on this weight loss journey and you have a friend of yours who's also overweight telling you, well, that doesn't work. Bro, you're overweight yourself. Don't tell me what does and doesn't work because you're fat. Like, don't give me this crap. And that flip of the coin too, where it's like, you get these advice from people that may be healthy. They have a healthy body, but if they've never been obese, they don't get it. They may understand a lot of it. They don't get it. So what I would recommend for anyone, the Instagram weight loss community, the weight loss community in general, find someone that has been where you're at, that has gotten the results that you want, and ask for help. And I can almost guarantee you they're going to say yes. Like the amount of DMs I get constantly, the amount, like John, all these people, and they get to the passion of contributing past themselves now that they're going to give you raw, real advice from people that have been there, that given you actual results that can help you shape the results you're looking for. Because it is dangerous when you ask for help from someone that they just don't get it. And this is where I get into the whole sincere ignorance, where your friends and your family, sometimes even doctors, sincerely wish the best for you, but they're ignorant to the fact of the things they just don't know what they don't know. And so it's important if you're in this position where you're like, I'm 100 plus pounds overweight and I need to change. I have nowhere to start. I can't tell my friends about it because they laugh at me. I can't tell my parents about it. The Instagram weight loss community, a lot of these different places, you'd be blown away by how many people would just, oh yeah, let me educate you on nutrition, the foundations. Let me teach you about hydration and calories and finding important reasons why to do this and accountability. You'd be blown away by how much there is out there. And most of the time it's free.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I think it's so inspiring to see just how much you've grown. I don't even know you, but to witness it is just very, very inspiring, even to people I think who aren't on a weight loss journey or were never obese. Mm-hmm. Just to watch somebody take something they were unhappy with, say, I'm unhappy with this, change it, and then be able to share how they did that with other people. And that's so valuable. And I'm so glad that you're helping people.
Thank you.
I'm so anxious to know, you lost, of course, all this weight, so many pounds. What is the best thing you think you've gained from that experience?
The best thing I've gained. I'm grateful for that massive struggle because it allows me to impact so many people in so many different places. Like the amount of people that reach out to me for help and knowing that, let's be honest here. You're a doctor's son. You had everything basically handed to you. I wouldn't be able to help anybody if I didn't have this experience, because anyone would look at me and they'd ask for, say, health advice or financial advice or advice about anything. You don't understand it. You've been given the silver spoon. You've been given everything. And I love helping. And how many people would actually be willing to take advice from me if I wouldn't either. If I was given sunshine and rainbows my whole life, I would be like, bro, you don't know what it's like to go through anything tough. And so I think one of the greatest things it gave me was perspective, because number one, I do my best. Obviously, no one's perfect. I do my best not to judge any single person's situation, because if I could be 410 pounds at 18, drug addicts happen. Being a gambler happens. Being a whatever it is, like all these things happen. And so it allows me on a different stage, because what's nice about the weight loss thing is it's so physical. It's like what you said. It is tough when you have like a emotional transformation where you can see it in my pictures too. Like you look at 400-pound pictures of me and I'm just like, wow. And then where I'm at now, but that physical change is so in your face that people are like, he can help me. And it's like that has been one of the greatest things for me, because I love to contribute and help others. And so through that journey, it's helped me allow that impact to really happen.
Well, thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you willing to talk to me and share your story. And I hope that you will continue to help people. And wondering if you plan on continuing writing at all?
Yes, I will be writing more books for sure. Creating different programs. I love helping people. Like this is knowing there's so many stories in ALG already this year. I mean, who would I want to say? I mean, Jared, this guy in our community. I mean, he's coming out about himself, so I know he's not going to be mad about me talking about it. I mean, this guy, his first 2 weeks inside the community of like what we were doing, he just had broken up with his wife, lost his kid. He was an alcoholic. He weighed over 400 pounds. We have this community call every week. He didn't want to talk, but we talked him into being on the call. We got him. I was like, bro, you don't have to say a word. Just be on the call. And so we got him on the call. He's listening, shoulders crossed. He's all like this. And in the last 8 months, 7 months, 8 months, he's lost 120 pounds. He smiles. And it is the coolest thing to see, because this man, that's what it's about for me. Like, it's so cool. And like having people just like, obviously I'm not a guru. I don't ever want to be one. I want people to help themselves. And it just seeing that I was a catalyst to help someone transform their own life. That's what it's about for me.
Thank you so much, and best of luck
Yeah.
with all of that. Sure you will continue to make good changes. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Well, I'm grateful you reached out.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'll keep you posted on when this is
Yep.
going to come out.
And then, yeah, if you have any questions, text me, either DM me on Instagram or whatever. I'm always around.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. It was great meeting you.
No problem. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.